Hey grammar splainies! Welcome to video 2 of myself and yourself, himself, herself, itself, themselves, yourselves, ourselves. In the first video, we looked at some of the whys and wherefores behind this very simple, intuitive structure: subject, did, object. But there's another kind of object you need to be aware of. And get ready to follow me through a story with more twists than a red vine licorice factory. But we'll start easy. Vincent painted himself. Subject, painted, object. Easy? Now, Vincent painted a portrait of himself. That word of is called a preposition. It expresses a relationship between two or more things. And rule time, this word after the preposition is always an object. And you can see, if that object and the subject are the same person, we use a self word. Here are a few more examples. Malcolm wrote a book about himself. The king kept the best for himself. I liked him despite myself. Got that? It's time for our first twist. Ignore what I just told you. These prepositions express logical relationships, but prepositions can also express spatial relationships. I have the cat with me, beside me, beneath me, above me, before me, behind me. All these words and more are all prepositions, but if you'll notice, this subject and this object are the same, but I didn't use a self word. Here are a few more examples. You can't take it with you. Look behind you. Subject is you. In these sentences, the subject and the object are the same, so why aren't we saying yourself, myself? Well, the rule is different for those prepositions that express spatial relationships. You don't use a self word, you use some other object. Is that logical? Sounds like time for another twist. Ignore what I just told you. All these sentences are correct. They set the letter between them, but they discussed the letter between themselves. Here's another one. They passed the bottle among them, but they shared the secret among themselves. What's going on? Good question. This is one of many cases where scholars aren't sure. There's a lot of discussion out there. There are attempts to derive rules from analyzing speech like this, but as far as I know, this one isn't settled. One theory: in these sentences with themselves, we're not talking about a literal spatial relationship. The activity is going on between or among minds. So the subjects and the objects both are humans in their totality, their minds, their wills, their inner being. In these sentences with them, on the other hand, those spatial relationships are real. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, the subjects in these sentences are those total human beings, but the objects in these sentences are units of flesh and bone that have specific spatial relationships with regard to other physical objects, a letter, a bottle. Another way of putting it, the subjects are souls, but the objects are bodies. And since they're two different things, we don't use a self word. Theory. So of course it's time for another twist. Ignore what I just said. The rule, whatever it is, has some soft spots. Look at this sentence. John put the bomb beside him. Soul put the bomb beside body, right? Well, John put the bomb beside himself is acceptable if you want to emphasize just whose body John put that bomb beside. There are other exceptions like this, each with their own rationale, each with their own twist. So let's have our last twist. Ignore what I just said. I've been goofing on you the whole time. Whatever the rule is, you already know it. Not consciously, not so you could articulate it, but as a native English speaker, you will say it right every time. That's part of what it means to acquire a language. We've also seen something of what it means to analyze a language. The rules aren't always firm, they aren't always obvious, they aren't always even discoverable. I hope you've enjoyed this bit of abstraction. You're smart, you're curious, you can take it, but let's reground ourselves with that one hard and fast rule from this lesson. The word after a preposition is always an object. So, what's going on between you and I? Have you ever heard this question? I've heard it and I've seen it all over the place, and it is an out-and-out, unambiguous violation of the rule we just learned, and native speakers make it all the time. This is one mistake that your native English-speaking instincts can't save you from. People need a lesson in objects, and they're going to get it in the next video. But before we go, bonus twist. How do you account for you can't take it with you? What's the rationale? If you have any ideas, put them down below and we'll talk about them. And as usual, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe.